should be going. I'm not entirely sure. I always like checking. I always like checking. Um, but it is occurring to me, it is a little funny. Am I, like, okay, yeah, YouTube does say I'm live, so cool. Let me just, yep, I am here. Yay. So I also am just thinking it's a little bit funny, because I think almost every single, live stream, though I typically don't catch them live, that I watch is always, they're late. They're late. I guess it's one advantage to doing this alone. Not having anyone with me. Alright, but I am still going to wait until, in just a few more minutes, until the normal time before I'll start talking about this episode of Star Trek The Animated Series, which is one of our planets is missing. An interesting one. I guess one thing I can talk about, fill the time, is... No, actually... So the May cover impressions video went live this morning. I recorded it yesterday. Sorry, not this morning, at noon Eastern time. And one of the books that I covered in that yesteryear, as I recall, I was basically saying, like, I could see the premise having potential, because there's certainly various other stories that same kind of premise, or at least very similar, and I named some. That's like, yeah, I mean, you could do something here. But I was concerned because it is modern time. And there's also one piece pulled out of a review for it. So the premise to yesteryear is, which also, wait, isn't that also one of the... Yeah. Not Star Trek The Animated Series yesteryear, a book called this. Very different, very different. But the premise to it is you basically have one of those trad wife influencers who looks it on a camera but isn't living that life, and is in fact quite far removed from it, gets somehow mysteriously transported to 1855, where that's still a husband, those are still kids, but nothing else is the same. And even then, it's not like they know her. She's the only one that went through this experience. So it's like, yeah, there's potential here. It could be interesting, but I wouldn't trust it today. And there was one thing pulled out of a review that was shared. I think it was Barnes & Noble I was looking at. And it was just like one of the other images you could go through. It was like, I don't remember exactly how it was, but it was like the closest thing we'll get to inside a trad wife mind. And that was such a red flag to me. Because it's like, why are you othering these people? I mean, I get that there are women that do put on the trad wife persona. I get that. But there's also some that's just what how they choose to live. Why are you othering them? So that was a red flag to me. So it's like, I don't think I'd be interested in the book. Well, I saw today, though, a review somebody wrote. I'm pretty sure it is a woman who wrote it. Wrote the review. And just went through how, basically every concern I had was apparently valid. So it's like, well, that's the only reason I read that review. It's like, I have a feeling I know how it's going. What, is that how it went? Yep, that's exactly how it went. Which is, I don't know, it's sad because, as I said, the premise has potential there, but it also, how this is being talked about, made it sound like this was a anointed book, where they wanted it to be written, so then they could get onto the New York Times bestseller, so then they can make a movie about it, and they could do this, they could that. It's all about that. It's not about actually trying to tell a good story. It's about, trying to tell a modern story to attract the modern audience. So, yeah. Anyway, it's 9 o'clock. Let's get to Star Trek The Animated Series. One of our plans is missing. The 7th episode produced, third one to air. And it's interesting, yeah. So the idea is that they have detected this cloud entering the galaxy, and the Enterprise is the only one near enough to intercept and figure out, okay, what is this thing? And it's big. 800,000 kilometers across, and I think somebody also said something like it has the mass of Jupiter, Saturn, and I think Uranus. I'm not sure if they also listed Neptune, but at least 3 gas giants in our solar system doubled. Like more than double that. So that's That's very big. And to help put that in context, Jupiter alone is so massive compared to every other planet, including the other gas giants. It is if you were to remove all the others, the wobble of the sun, it would still be there. So I'm describing that poorly. The Earth wobbles as the moon goes around because the moon, though it is much smaller, it does cause the center. So the center of mass, the geometric center for the Earth is not the actual point around the sun, is not its center of gravity. So that's not, if you were to trace out the orbit, it's not the center of the Earth that follows that line. It's a little bit off. Because the moon is there, and so because we are coupled together, we're both orbiting the sun. It's off just a little bit. Our center of gravity is just a little bit off, and that's what's actually following the orbit. Same thing is true for the sun, where the mass of the rest of the solar system pushes the center of gravity off just a little bit from the actual dead center of the sun. Jupiter is so massive, and also potentially maybe because it's so close to the sun as well, compared to the other gas giants. I don't remember if it's Saturn or Uranus that actually, when that was discovered, it doubled the size of the solar system. That's how far out it was. It was twice as far as the next one in. But Jupiter alone produces the bulk of that wobble, the bulk of that offset. So yeah, Jupiter is huge. The red spot, if I remember correctly, you can, like the Great Red Spot, the storm on Jupiter is also so large. Because, you see it, it's like, oh yeah, I see the red spot, it's like, that big, here's the size of the planet, oh yeah, it's that big. It's like, yeah, that looks, that thing's bigger than the Earth. If I remember correctly, you can fit 4 Earths in it across, but I'm pretty sure, because it also bulges out above the top of Jupiter's atmosphere. I'll explain why it's a little awkward to talk about it. It bulges out, and I think even that bulge is actually, like, the height going above the atmosphere. I think even that is still, at least on the scale of the size of the Earth, if not actually as large as the size of the Earth. So it's huge. So when you're talking about, yeah, this thing is it's larger than, it possesses more mass than double Jupiter, it's like, that's very big. That is very big. Quickly explaining about why it's a little weird to talk about Jupiter and its atmosphere and any of that, is that it's a gas giant. So there's some phase diagram. It's called a phase diagram. And that's, it's just X, Y, like that. Let me do it this way. And typically you have 2 lines for any material, right? That are drawn there, and that's where it would cross from, like, here, it's a solid. Here it's a, hang on, I'm trying to remember, I might have some of this. Yes, solid, gas, and you'll have a spot for liquid, but it's only down here. It's only down here that might be a liquid. And it's, I'm just trying to remember what the axes are, because one is temperature, one is pressure. I'm just trying to remember which would be which. No, temperature is this one. Temperature is this one. Because that's why at lower temperatures, things will be solid. So pressure is this one. Here's the thing, though. Those lines that I talked about, that's where transitions from gas to solid or gas to liquid, liquid to all that. Those end. Those actually don't go out forever. Those end. And so you can actually have materials that you can't really say that they're gas anymore. You can't really say that they're solid anymore. Because the pressure is so high, or the temperature is so high, that's the case. And there's actually one material, I don't remember what it is. It might be aerogel, it might be something else. Where we actually intentionally just go around the edge of one of those lines, because it leads to some interesting things. But in any case, a gas giant, this would be all gas giants, not just Jupiter. Their pressure is so high that it actually exists in that space beyond those lines. Such that you don't really have a clear sense of solid and gas anymore. So is there a surface to Jupiter? No, there isn't. Because really have the same concept of a solid like we have on Earth here. I mean, it really is fascinating. So there's always some amount of fluidity there, but it would also mean that in theory, if you were somebody who were sufficiently invulnerable, let's just say Superman, right? And say that he is sufficiently invulnerable to survive this. If he were to try to land on Jupiter, technically he would go down and find a spot where maybe he could stand. But it would be more so a buoyancy type of thing, where it's just, okay, now his own density has balanced out with the density of that around him. And I could believe that there might be a degree of standing in that the density is so high that he would feel like there's a surface, but it's not a true surface. So yeah, gas giants are very interesting. At some point, I do have an idea for something I want to do in one of my stories with a gas giant. And legitimately, it would be, I want to put it in there, just to describe to people that technically this is a thing. But it's not like you would never want to try to colonize a gas giant. There's nothing there to colonize. At best, you would try to mine it, try to get gas out of it. But even then, I'm not sure to what effect, because its atmosphere is going to be largely simple molecules, some volatiles, potentially, but it's like you'd be better off mining asteroids for the majority of stuff that we're interested in. So, anyhow, coming back to this. There we go. It is big. It is very powerful. And there's a mention early on about it being matter and energy. It's like, okay. And they see it approach a planet, Alondra? I think it was something like that. It doesn't really matter. It eats it. It just swallows up, and it's like the planet's gone. That's not good. And so they see that happen, and they're able to monitor it and see that the planet is like being broken up and digested in the cloud. Now, they haven't figured out yet that it is in fact a living thing. That does follow. They do, but it is being digested. This thing eats planets for sustenance. That is what its food is. Spock then makes a comment about how, yeah, this is dangerous because lots of planets with people living on them, but also, what if it would consume a star? You're doing a disservice to Spock to have him deliver such a line. For one thing, 800,000 kilometers, I'm pretty sure that's not big enough to even scratch a star. Because, I mean, remember, the sun is a main sequence star. It's basically an average star for its generation. But there are plenty of stars that are a hell of a lot bigger. And at some point, the sun itself is also going to be bigger. Because it will swell up over time and become a red giant. At which point, it will go past the orbit of Earth. All right? Red giants are huge. 800,000 kilometers it's not going to do a damn thing to a star. Maybe a white dwarf, because those things are actually at the scale of about a planet. Well, a terrestrial planet like Earth is. So it's like, okay, but that doesn't count. Plus, I don't know if it could digest it. But anyway, because also a star, it's very hot. It is largely for what you would get at the surface, it's largely going to be hydrogen and helium. Technically, the sun should have within it every element that you would find on Earth, because we're all made from the same stuff. All the solar system is from the same buffet of material, you might say. So it's like, all the gas giants, they look different if you look at the images. Jupiter has these wondrous bands of color. Saturn, you can still see some bands where it's basically all just a yellowish color. Uranus is blue, Neptune is green. Here's the thing. They're all the same composition. They're all the same materials. Why do they look so different? Temperature. Well, yeah, it's because these are the materials that were there. The sun would probably still have every single material that you see on Earth, that you find on Earth. But the bulk of it has probably sunk down if it's heavy. Um, so, like, if there is uranium, for example, um, within the sun, it's probably near the core, if not within it. I'm actually kind of wondering about that now. Man, that's actually very interesting. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up. Is there uranium in the sun? Which I'm probably gonna get an answer. So I was like, well, no, it's nuclear fusion, not fission. Okay, yeah. Okay, so the search assistant does say uranium is present in the sun, but in very small amounts, approximately 10 to the minus 12th that of hydrogen. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to try asking the question then as a follow-up. DuckDuckGo was nice. And it's AI system. Where would the uranium be? Would it be in the core or possibly outside of it? Okay, yeah, I figured that, but okay. I don't recall what the radiative region is, but it does say that, yeah, you would find some in the core. See, the reason why I was wondering about that is that implies that there would be a number of heavy elements in the core. In trace, for the size of the sun in trace levels. So, but, excuse me, would they be disrupting the fusion? That's what I'm curious about. And I don't know if I can ask that question of the AI here, because I could believe that's something that's not really studied. I was like, one thing that I know I did try looking up, but this was years ago. I don't think I ever found answers. I've never even seen anything talking about where, because like we're not a first generation star system, right? A star one supernova produced the various elements that we have here. Maybe it was a single massive supernova, or maybe it was there were already neutron stars because you need a neutron star merger or a class 3. In order to make uranium, which we do have on Earth, you need basically some of the largest explosions possible, well, the largest energy events possible in the universe, which is either supernovas so massive that they might even be considered hypernovas, which the idea to a hypernova is you have a supernova, but there's so much energy there that actually produces antimatter briefly, which then collides with matter. And by the way, this actually proves relevant to this episode. But then the antimatter collides with matter, and so it explodes again. And we've seen one thing, those were theoretical, but we have seen one thing that I think they were like, you know what, maybe. Or neutron star mergers, where neutron stars collide with each other, and you get such a dump of neutrons and energy and such there, that it can produce heavier elements such as uranium. So we know that we had to have come after that stuff. I've never seen anything like research into, okay, based on where we are in the galaxy and our movements, this is probably where the nebula was that we're formed from. So these would be the sister star systems that also formed from that same nebula, and this might be the remnant of the star that created the nebula. I've never seen anything. And I think that's a worthwhile question. I really do. And I use some of that stuff in, well, rather, I acknowledge that there had to be a precursor star to the sun in the Children Money Gifts, which it only comes up towards the mid-50s. So it's a ways into the book before you get to it, but still, it isn't. Anyhow, come back to this. Spock's concerned that, oh, this thing could consume a star. No, it couldn't. No, it couldn't. Um, that is not even remotely a thing. I mean, it's also, remember I was talking about how big Jupiter is? The sun dwarfs it completely. And all the mass in the solar system outside of the sun is less than the mass of the sun. It's also like one thing I've only seen 2010, but the sequel to 2001, A Space Odyssey, the sequel to that. I've only seen that once, but it ends with a whole bunch of the obelisks coming out of like a wormhole thing to way into Jupiter, so it will form to a second. No. There's not enough mass there to handle. In fact, even if another thing about how massive the sun is compared to all that, even if you took all the mass outside of the sun and dumped it into Jupiter, you still would not get a star out of that. That's scale is often wrong in science fiction. I try to do it right in my stuff. I'm not saying I'm succeeding. I'm just saying I'm trying. A lot of people, I think, don't try. Anyway, let's get back to this. Yeah, I got that. So, it has already consumed one planet that was uninhabited, apparently. Okay. It has turned now and is heading towards a planet that is inhabited. And it's like, well, shit. Alright, what do we do? What are our options here? Well, first, go to Warp 8. We gotta get there ahead of it. Alright, we can do that. Now what? Well, do we inform the planet? Well, maybe we don't. Because planet-eating cloud coming towards you is, good reason for people to panic, and that might make things worse. But they do end up deciding, you know what? The governor is this guy. We know him. He's level-headed. We can let him know he will be able to handle this, okay? We don't want to do this as just a general broadcast on the planet. That would be bad. But we can let him know he will handle it. And meanwhile, they will try to stop the cloud somehow. But and actually, one thing about that I do appreciate, and we'll get to that. But I want to focus first on the planets. The governor and their reaction to the cloud coming. Because there's no way that they can evacuate everyone. They figure thousands, but there's 80 million people on the planet. It's like they figure they might be able to get thousands off. It's like, okay, it's like, well, it's gonna suck you having to make that choice. Kirk is saying to the governor. He's like, it's no choice. It's the children. And I'm just like, hold on. I'm sorry. This may sound bad. I'm not saying you're excluding children. I'm just saying you cannot prioritize the children. I mean, unless you are abandoning the idea that planet has its own culture, you cannot let it be the children. Because if you want your culture to survive, you need some of the adults. Because they're the ones that know the culture. The kids don't. The kids are still learning the culture. And culture is important. Do you want the children to live? Yeah, got that. But I guess a way to put it is, do you want them to live in a world that continues the one they came from? Or do you want them to just be adopted into other worlds and then your people still vanish? Like, genetically, yeah, sure, they still exist. But the language can leave, the stories can leave, all that can just vanish. That's why, no, you'd have to include the adults. You'd have to include adults. I mean, I get the whole, the children have to be... but it's a way to basically ensure your people still die. One thing, though, I will give the governor, because it is mentioned later, his daughter, 11-year-old daughter, who should qualify for child being evacuated, actually stays with him. He keeps her with him. Which... I can see that being a horrible decision for a parent to make. Like, what kind of parent are you that you do that? But for a governor, it's a way to express both the gravity of the situation, but also his calm, which is and his strength, his courage, which is something that in a situation like that you do need to project. Yeah. So I'll give him credit for that, but it still is no, this should almost be look, we're just going to get a cross-section of people, get them on ships, and get them the hell out of here. We're not looking for selecting people. And also, if possible, try to pick up a library. I mean, it's like, something like that. Because you want to preserve the whole thing. But it is also possible that this is the Federation. Now we're all basically one culture. Not actually accurate for the Federation, but still, it's like, it might be, yeah, it doesn't matter. You go to any Federation world, it's the same culture. Maybe. But I don't like that. That isn't how it should work out. Every planet, think about on Earth, right? We have the United States and Canada. We're different cultures, and we're neighbors. You have the United States. You have states within the United States. You have Ohio, Indiana. I'm just thinking about the ones around me. Ohio, Indiana. Yeah, it's Kentucky. Kentucky. Is it? No. Pennsylvania is it? Is it West Virginia? No, that doesn't seem right. No, it must be, because I'm also thinking maybe Tennessee, but no, Tennessee is further south. So yeah, all these, we all have different cultures. All these states have different cultures. We're neighbors. We're still American, but we have different cultures. And I'm exposing my potentially poor sense of geography. Sorry. Although, in my defense, there are plenty of people on the internet that you just ask, what are the states bordering Ohio? They might get Indiana and Pennsylvania, and that would be it. They would not remember Kentucky's to the south. Hell, I could believe they wouldn't even get Indiana. It's sad. It's sad. But, to be fair, though, I also regularly was moving through Ohio, have family in other states. So it's like, yeah, you go west, I know that better. So it's like, yeah, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa. It's like, I know that better because I've traveled through those states. So anyway. My point being, I have better familiarity with some of this than probably plenty of other Americans. You don't really need to move far from your own home. Anyway, coming back to this. Okay, so yeah, nothing really more to talk about the planet. I covered that the whole. No, you'd need more than just the children. Oh yeah, that's right. In theory, if you could preserve a library, either just like microfilm, which would be the concept they would have back then, when this was made, or the actual books, that would be good. You would also want to do that, but yeah, you need to preserve the culture, not just the people. The people can carry the culture, yes, but that's adults. That's not the children. The children are still learning it, so yeah. All right. Turning to the Enterprise, they are trying to stop the thing, but they don't have many options. They have gotten ahead of it and get swallowed by it, which is immediately shields up. Keep that up at all cost, because somehow this creature is also largely antimatter. On the one hand, no, matter and antimatter, those interactions are violent. Always. Okay, maybe if you're able to do just atom to atom, well, atom to anti-atom, it's like maybe at just that level. This thing consumes planets, okay? It's not doing atom by atom or particle by particle. It's doing city by city consumption, okay? No. But it's still, okay, the thing is largely antimatter. I think Spock also has a line that, again, is just showing that, okay, you're making Spock kind of stupid here. Because he mentions that, it seems, based on our readings, it seems this thing is from outside our own galaxy. It's like, did you not hear the mission briefing at the start of this, Spock? It said it was entering the galaxy. I mean, you don't enter the galaxy that you're already in, that you're already from. Anyway, they get swallowed by it. And I have to deal with this antimatter stuff, which is a bit of a problem. And they use an antimatter charge, from the shields to repel some of it, and even destroy some of it. But then they end up Okay, so they do that, and then it's like, okay, well, what do we do? Well, based on our sensor sweeps, we can't go back. That closed, but there is an exit on the back. Yeah, we don't have the power to make that. But, if we speed run this, like we just run through as fast as we can, we'll die. But maybe we'll give it enough indigestion for the cloud to be like, I'm turning, I'm going somewhere else. Because by this point, there does seem to be the indication that it is a life form, that it might not be intelligent, well, super intelligent, but there is some degree of animal intelligence here, it seems. They're not certain, but it still is it turned towards this new planet. Antilles, I think it was. So it intentionally did that. So at least it has the dumb intelligence of an animal, an animal instinct for survival. So, okay. Well, maybe we make it uncomfortable enough so it turns and leaves, and then we're good. Yay! We die, but the planet is saved. Yay! As they're doing that, though, they realize they're not going to make it out because they're going to run out of power. Especially because they have to have the shields up at full. They reach a portion that they liken to the small intestine. They're saying philia, I thought it was cilia, but either way. The parts of the small intestine that kind of reach out towards what's in it. And they point out, this looks to be antimatter. We need to avoid this stuff. But then Scotty radios up, it's like, we're in trouble. Because we are just draining our power like you wouldn't believe. Because I was like, you got the engines going full, you got the shields going full. We are not in good shape right now. Alright, what do? Well, Scotty proposes, didn't you say that things made of antimatter? Yeah. That's what we need. Why don't we just cut off a portion, beam it in, I can stick it in the engines. Well, what about the matter? This thing eats planets, right? Yeah. Isn't there debris around? Okay, we can do this. I appreciate this. I do. Because it is giving a better... In the original series, it never really gets too much into how the engines work. A lot of it is just jargon that, though appropriately thrown around, like it's a matter-antimatter reaction, yes. But they never really delve much into it there, I feel. But it is appropriately used. Here, they're continuing to use it appropriately. But now they are actually going to that higher level, where they are describing what is going on there. That, yeah, we need the matter and antimatter, we need it to mix in. It's like, we can capture them, put it in there. It's like, seeing that procedure, I like. That's actually, definitely a positive. It not necessarily done the best. Because, like, they just put the container with the antimatter in a room and then leave. And it's like, it should be more involved than that. But anyway, it's still like, I appreciate this. That's nice. One thing, though, that I would... And this is me just being technical, not giving a fair criticism. You would want the antimatter and the matter to be matched. So, for example, let's assume that they are using helium nuclei, alpha particles, and anti-alpha particles, helium nuclei. I think that would make sense because helium, it's very stable. Even if you strip out the electrons, I couldn't believe that it'd still be stable. And it's got a good amount of mass there. Should be relatively easy to make. Not as easy as protons and antiprotons, but still, it's like, that should be a decent density. And should be relatively easy to work with. Like, I think that's reasonable. But still, it's like, okay, so you got that helium, anti-helium there, and you want it to interact with something else. Well, let's say that it's anti-helium, but let's say you want to mix it with hydrogen, though, instead of with helium. Well, let's assume it's a normal helium nucleus. That's 2 protons, 2 neutrons. So there's 4 particles there. That means you would need 4 hydrogen nuclei, because those are just protons. Deuterium would have proton and neutron. But why would you use deuterium here? Just use regular hydrogen. Okay, now you need 4. You need all 4 to interact with that at the same time. That's what you'd want to balance it. You'd want to make sure it's matching matter. So that way you don't have a part. Damn, now I'm kind of wondering. What would happen if you did have an antimatter nucleus and you had it collide with the incorrect matching with an incorrect number of other particles and normal nanoparticles. I I don't know. I don't know. Because in if it's just, oh well, if we look just at the mass, okay, not all of it is converted to energy. It's like, okay, yeah. But we're talking about nucleonic particles that are now being exposed to very powerful energy dumped right into them. Where are those particles going? Like, what? They don't need to stay there. They would explode out. That's that's dangerous. But is that what would happen? Like, would the energy be less than the? I can never remember which it is between the strong or weak nuclear force. One is the hold between nucleons, so between protons and neutrons. The other is I think that's a strong nuclear force. So that's a nuclear fission, what you're messing with. Whereas the weak nuclear force, I think that's the one that is actually within. No, that. I'll just look it up. Okay. Okay, the strong nuclear force is the one that binds protons and neutrons together in the atomic nucleus. Okay, that I got right. The weak nuclear force is responsible for processes like radioactive decay and nuclear fusion, facilitating the transformation of particles such as neutrons and protons. Part of the reason why I knew the strong nuclear force had to be the one concerned with the binding between the nucleons is I do remember one of those funny things that technically the weak nuclear force is more powerful. And that it's what's, or maybe it's what's tied to nuclear fusion, which is, it produces more power than fission. So it's one of those weird things that's kind of oddly named. But I think it is that the weak nuclear force might also be more internal. Yeah, the weak force, or weak nuclear force, is responsible for particle decay. Okay. I'm not sure. So, helium atom, anti-atom, only gets hit by, let's say, 2 protons. Let's just. Would it be the strong nuclear force? Could that be strong enough to hold it together, and so potentially you're either with 2 protons, 2 neutrons, or a proton and a neutron. So, sorry, 2 protons, 2 neutrons, or proton and neutron. In which case, that's deuterium. Unstable helium, if it's 2 protons, nothing. I mean, it's just 2 neutrons if it's 2 neutrons. I don't know. Or would they be exploded out? I don't know. But still, just being technical, not a fair criticism. You would not want to just match. You would not want to just have antimatter and matter together, unless it is you just want to blow things up. If you're trying to produce power, which is what they're trying to do here, no. That needs to be matched. In an emergency, okay, fine, you can do this. And this is an emergency, fine. But this is not a good, safe reaction otherwise. So, okay, they got power back up. So, okay, we got a chance now. Have a chance. So what are we going to do? Suggestions? Well, I'll scan. And this literally, Kirk comes back up from engineering after they do all this and get the matter, get the new matter and antimatter in there. Which is actually kind of neat because it looks like in the trivia it describes being in the nacelle. I was looking back and forth because I was writing. Yeah, this is where you see for the first time the Enterprise's antimatter nacelles, where Kirk and Scotty use a piece of Vili extracted from the cloud creature to recharge the antimatter engines. I do have a problem with that. Because I don't think it was the nacelles. that they were in. I think what we were seeing was when you're in the main series, in the original series, you see, the wall there, that there's a gate, and then you see a whole bunch, and it looks like an engine, behind that, and it's just, like a thing here, and then a bunch of things coming off like that. That's where they go into and are doing stuff. That's not the nacelle. My understanding for the nacelles is you have the warp core there that's actually producing the warp plasma, and that's just pumped. The plasma, so it's pumped into the nacelles. And the nacelles are taking the energy from that, the warp energy specifically, and they are then producing the warp field. So I'm trying to think what would be an equivalent, or at least kind of sort of analogy. I guess it would be, I don't want to use that. This is lousy because it's not how they work, but imagine, if you can, something like a neon light that has a base to it, where the gas, the neon, or other things, it's actually funny, neon, people tend to think of that with green. No, neon is actually a red when you do this. Green is typically argon, I think. But anyway, imagine if you had, a base here, and then, the light up here, the bulb up here. If it were down here that you are making that you're actually exciting it, causing it to glow, and then you're just releasing it in there, but now here is where it's releasing the light. I think it's more like that for the ship. But anyhow, I don't think they were in the nacelles, is the point there. But they are definitely near it. They're in the area that feeds the nacelles. Kirk comes back up, and then it's like, all right, what are our options? And Spock is like, well, while you were gone, continued sensor scanning, and, hey, we think we found the brain. Cool. Does that mean it's intelligent? We don't know. It did make the intelligent decision of turning to this planet, but that's all we basically got, so it's at least got animal instincts, but we don't know about anything like higher intelligence, super intelligence, communication. We don't know. All right. Well, let's head to the brain and kill it. Is basically Kirk's response, and Spock's like, it's a life form. It's an intelligent life form. Well, it's a life form. Federation law is very clear. We don't kill those things without good reason. It's like, we actually try to avoid that. It's like, yeah, but we don't know if it's actually intelligent, Spock. Also, between, if I have to be the judge here, like that's how Kirk even puts it, if I have to be the judge here between this thing or the planet of 80 million people, I'm choosing to kill this thing and not the 80 million people. So they head there, but upon reaching the brain, they realize something. This is so big. Even all of our armament, if we fired everything at the brain, we might not kill it. That's how big it is. All right. What are alternatives? If we could convert the whole mass of the Enterprise into energy and strike, we might be able to kill it then. And Bones is there and is like, oh, so, you mean self-destruct? It's like, and Spock's like, I believe that's what I just said, yes. Also reminds me, there was some analogy that Bones used, and it's like, why are you doing this? It was more of an engineering kind of thing. So it's like, I don't know why he was the one giving it. Oh, yeah, he's the one who likens the ship's hull will be digested basically because of the antimatter around. But I get the whole, he understands digestion, but he's the one bringing up that the ship is the hull is going to be destroyed. That's an engineering type thing, or a science state. So that should be Scotty or Spock talking about it, not Bones. I mean, they can bring it up and then Bones be like, oh, it's like a digestive tract then. But and anyway. So it's like, okay, we might be able to kill this thing. It would mean destroying the ship, but we're Starfleet. That's kind of what we do. It's like, we will sacrifice ourselves to save those people. Our thing. But Spock does suggest an alternative. And this is one thing that I do like, and I kind of said this earlier that I do like. This is a crisis, but they have a list of options, and they just go through them. And it's not it's not harebrained. It's not pure Deus Ex Machina. It's like, oh, why don't we try this? Why don't we try this? No, it's not like that. And there is, even with what Spock suggests that I haven't gotten to yet, there still is a, how long do we have that, we can do self-destruct and potentially kill this thing? It's like they maintain those other options. And I do appreciate that because it can be a temptation in, especially modern stories, but any stories, that you just move from one possible solution, let's just say one solution, to the next. It's as though they are all in series. And this is appreciating the fact that, no, these are parallel. That we can do Spock's thing, but we also have that option still of destroying it. And we are recognizing these. But even then, earlier, it was, well, maybe if we can give it indigestion, it'll stop. It's like, they're trying all these things, and they're valid. They're presented as valid, they're given reasons, and it's just, we're going to try them, and hopefully one will work. I like that. I appreciate that. Because it is, as I said, it can be very tempting not to do that. It can be very tempting to just move from the next to next to next to next, instead of running them in parallel or respecting them in parallel. I'm just trying to think. Have I been guilty of that in my writing? Maybe a little bit. Going back to Show Money Gifts in the 50s, there are strategies going on there that, the thing is that when you read it for the first time, you might not realize I actually have multiple strategies going on at the same time. I wrote it that way intentionally, very intentionally, because it was, okay, we're going to try this first. It's probably not going to work, but we can try it. Then we're going to try this. This actually has a chance of working, but I don't know. This third one, it's going to work. Okay, it is guaranteed to work, but it is the most difficult to do. So even back here at Strategy 1, it still is, I'm going to do everything I can to prepare for this. But you don't realize that, because I'm not going to say what that strategy is. Right now, that's a significant spoiler. But it does actually, if you were to read through the 50s, get to that, and then get the explanation for what that final strategy was. If you were to then go back and restart reading through the 50s, you'll see that there are certain things happening that, it's feeding into that strategy. Here, one I will mention, because I'm not sure, I don't think I ever stated it explicitly, but because in that battle in the 50s, the two combatants can both fly, but they start on the ground. One of them, the good guy, basically, he does actually constantly hit up. He's punching up at his opponent. He's trying to drive him into the air. He wants them to fly because he doesn't want them on the ground. There's greater danger to, like, hurting, damaging what's around you than that. He wants the fight to be in the air. So it's like, but that does also connect into somewhat to that final strategy. But it was like that. I don't remember if I ever actually wrote it in there, but no, that is why he's doing that. It is an intentional action of his to try to drive the fight into the air. Okay, come back to this. I do appreciate them doing this. So what is Spock's suggestion? It's got a brain. I'm a Vulcan. I got telepathy. Can we try? And Kirk is like, well, or maybe it was Kirk that Spock brought it up. He suggested, but then Kirk was like, a mind meld? Well, no, because that would require physical contact. At least to force it. I'll get to that. But I still got telepathy. So what Spock is thinking, his plan, and they need to work on it to get it there, is I can reach out mentally to it, to try to talk to it. I'm not going to be able to hear it, though. Okay, like, it seems like in order for that, he would need permission from the creature or physical contact to have two-way communication there. But it's a freaking brain. Bones is in and says, well, all brains operate electrically. Not actually true. Plenty of people do believe that electrical impulses are part of it, but there is also a lot of chemicals involved where it is just very advanced chemistry. There's quantum mechanics in there. It's a thing. It's a thing. Electricity, yes, is a significant part of it, but it is more involved in that. It's also like, I'm trying to remember when it was. I saw something. This was a while ago. Man, am I doing so many tangents with this. But this one's neat. I think a lot of these are neat. But this one's neat. I'm pretty sure it was an MRI or an fMRI where they were just monitoring the blood flow. Okay, the blood flow in the brain. They were monitoring that so closely to figure out, okay, what regions of the brain, even like specific areas in the brain are activating. They were then able to like come up with images from what they were seeing. Okay? Yes, we have actually used an MRI to read somebody's mind. It wasn't that great. MRIs are very big. It's not like you can just do this. But and this was through monitoring blood flow, not electrical activity, not the movement of chemistry, although technically that is following the blood flow. But just by seeing that, they were able to project images. That's neat. But it is just, the brain is very complex. Electricity is part of it, not all of it. But anyway, back then, that's what they thought electricity. Okay, fine. Moving forward. They figured, well, we can focus the sensors on the brain in such a way that we can monitor this activity, run it through the universal translator, or her suggests that, and then from that, we can hear it. So we get the two-way communication. So then, okay, it's time. Spock has to do this. He's like, no, seriously, they have him put his arms out like that, reaching out, and I'm just like, I get it, but at the same time, it's telepathy. I don't feel like grabbing it. I think it's right there. I got a movie called Dark City. The Dark City. It's an interesting movie. I'm happy I have it. There are some parts with that are weird. One thing though, because it does have a mental battle towards the end, just a battle of wills. And there's one thing about it that's like, on the one hand, it is so silly looking because it's literally just the two characters like floating in the air because they can apparently fly. And they're just like yelling at each other, and CG is used to like show just waves coming out of their brains towards each other, and they're fighting that way. It's like, on the one hand, I must admit that if you're having a battle of wills like that, why would your body be involved? Why would Spock be going like this when it's just his mind that's working? What? His arms have no point here. But you look at Dark City, and it's like, that is so stupid. I was like, it makes sense, but it's stupid looking. It's still a good movie. I do still recommend watching it. Let me quickly look. I'm curious. And yeah, I'm just gonna look at it. Look it up this way. Dark City movie from '98. And also, one reason why it's kind of, if you like The Matrix, there are certain elements of The Matrix that are similar to Dark City. And Dark City is technically older. Okay, it is streaming on Roku and Tubi. Yeah, definitely. Because that would be free. For either of those, they might have ads. Yeah, go ahead and watch it. If it being free, yeah, I think it's definitely worth that watch. I'm just saying that as far as, if you don't want to spend the money, don't need to. Just watch it free and then decide. Maybe you want to buy it. I don't remember. The Blu-ray I have is an older one. I don't remember who made that, but Arrow actually put out a version, and they do good work. Arrow is, I'm not necessarily on the same level of Criterion, but Arrow is kind of like, I'm saying this in a positive way, kind of a boutique place where they do very good restorations. And I have a number of movies that they've done, and they do look very good. They're very good at their job. Like I've got right there, Last Starfighter and RoboCop. I've got Conan the Barbarian. They also did Conan the Destroyer. I don't have that. The Pitch Black I've got, and they also did Flash Gordon. They've done other stuff. They've done The Stuff, which I don't care for that movie. My family loves it, though. They even did, on the 4K, well, they put out a 4K of a more or less uncut version of The Stuff. It's look, I get it. I get why my family likes this stuff. I don't. I saw it when I was too young. It's one of those things. But yeah, if you end up liking Dark City, I know Arrow has a version, though I've not seen it. I can believe that that's a very good master of it. Let's come back to this. So Spock reaches out and is successful and is able to start communicating with the Cloud. That there is communication, but it is clearly limited communication in that this is still more an animal. I don't think you would. I think technically you might be able to say, because it does have some language here, that it is super intelligent, but at a very low level. Like, still early in communication, so still early super intelligence. So it's big, but plenty of children would be smarter than this thing. Just because human children are so developed for that. This thing is not. But they're able to communicate with it, and Spock is basically, it's like, because it's like, what the hell is this? Who are you? What are you? And Spock tries to explain, okay, there are small things, small beings that are inside of you. That's what I am. I'm trying to talk with you. And the thing you're going towards, that you're going to eat, has many of these on there. And if you eat it, you will kill them. And I already figured this is what it would end up being like, and it makes sense. I think it's fair. This creature has an understanding of life and death, and does not desire death. It doesn't desire to cause death. It just doesn't realize that there are these other living things. So it has no awareness that these planets may have life on them, and doesn't, but it wishes no harm there. So it's like, oh yeah, eventually he is able to convince it to stop. That requires actually going to a full mind meld, which makes no sense, because it was just said, no, you need physical contact. Well, I guess it is, because Spock is like, here, open your mind to me, if you let me in. So I guess it is if the creature allows it, they're able to get that. So this allows then the creature to enter Spock's mind, such that is now seeing with Spock's eyes, and they actually run on the view screen images of Earth, in order to try to show it that, yes, there are life forms there. And this succeeds in getting the creature to stop. And then it's like, all right, now what do we do? I was half expecting well, look, we can help you. We can tell you where there are planets that, there's no life on them. At least no life we care about. Sorry. Which that can just be, there's no intelligent life on it. That it's got plants. It's got insects. It's got fish, maybe. You got to live too, so it's like, yeah, that's okay. It's like, nothing there that can ask you not to kill it. We can ask you not to kill it, so we want you not to kill us. That's kind of a fair rule in that kind of way. So anyway, but because instead they just go the route of, look, there's a lot of planets that have people living on them, so this is not a good place for you to be. You can't really feed. Okay. Why don't you go back to where you're from? That was a long journey. Very long journey. Why don't you go back to your place of origin? Okay. Again, this is kind of a scale problem, because for it came not from our galaxy. Maybe no. It had to have come from another galaxy. Because that much mass could exist outside of galaxies, in between galaxies, for this thing, but very little of it would be at the density of a planet, such that this thing clearly evolved to devour planets. Excuse me. You are not, you're not gonna get that kind of sustenance in intergalactic space. No, that's not gonna be a thing. It had to have come from another galaxy. So it's gotta leave. Which that could be either one of the dwarf galaxies orbiting us. So that's the Magellanic Clouds. I think there actually might be those two are the biggest, the large and small. There might be a third that is much smaller. I don't remember. But I'm pretty sure the next closest is actually Andromeda. Which, it's bigger than the Milky Way. Maybe. Pretty sure it is. It's one of those weird things. We can see Andromeda, we can't see the Milky Way. But I think that there have been times when I have seen some stuff where it's like, yeah, our estimates for the Milky Way, it might be on the same size as Andromeda, but that's a upper end of the uncertainty. We are likely smaller. Andromeda is a large galaxy. For the local group, it is the largest of the local group, but there are plenty of much bigger, much older galaxies out there. I'm just trying to think. Do I actually is that one? Hang on. I can see some galaxies in the background. Um, and this behind me, if I, uh, okay, yeah, yeah. This is also just a. Actually, let me look. That should just be a nebula. Protoplanetary disks in NGC 346. So yeah, that should just be a nebula. Um, Although going back to this, how I mentioned earlier about what where is it? And here, let me do that too. Where is it that the the solar system came from, and like the sister systems? This this is where in the protoplanetary disks that would be this would be containing some of those. So it's like there would be sister systems in there. So let's turn this stuff back on. Yeah, so, but it's just weird because, like, it's reasonable to think could starve going back. So it's like, yeah, maybe it should be a, yeah, okay, there's this planet, you can go eat those, then head back. But, yeah, so they do get the nice, happy resolution there where basically no one needed to die. And I'm good with that. I don't, I'm okay with that. You didn't need to destroy the thing. The willingness to destroy it, though, is appropriate and is good to have there because it is accurate. That is good storytelling. So yeah, I cannot complain about that. And it is. I ended it thinking, you know what? Yeah, this gets a straight recommendation. So that's a 3 when I use the numeric labels. I was thinking about maybe a weak recommendation, but it's like no, because what weaknesses it has to it aren't enough to push it to that. I think yeah, just straight recommendation. I will acknowledge it didn't. I didn't feel a strong connection to it. I've not been feeling a strong connection to any of these. And I think that's in part because I'm just constantly going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Watching it there, writing notes here. So I'm not able to connect with it as well. So I am just trying to go more so. Did I enjoy it? Because you can enjoy something without feeling a great connection to it. And what is the quality of it? And I think that, yeah, this was actually a pretty good episode. So yeah, I give it a straight recommendation. And yeah, there are some technical things that are wrong. I've already gone through those, but it's like, okay, plenty of them are not. Okay, the consuming a sun, consuming a star. Yeah, no, that one ticks me off. But the rest is like getting into the whole. Getting into the whole? You need to have the matter and antimatter matching each other. It's like, okay, I'm a nerd. I got that. I can't hold it against them. But yeah, I mean, it's I understand that one. I know to forgive. I know to forgive. I wouldn't forgive myself for that mistake. But that's because I know I'm a nerd. I'm technical enough. I do that stuff. Like, I can't mention it. The thing that I said I want to do in a future story with a gas giant, I set up in the first book for the Catherine verse. So that's I call my ship Catherine, which I don't recommend. I don't think I did a good job. A letter from Catherine. That's the second book in there. That I think I did a good job with. I recommend that one, but it's not relevant in there. In I call my ship Catherine, we're following a terraformer, and his primary means of terraforming a planet are these satellites that can project very powerful gravitational fields. So it can actually like rip mountains up out of the crust, like just draw it out like it were clay. And he's got a bunch of these, so it's a full network that would go around a planet. And the thing that occurred to me with how gas giants are is in theory, and the whole it's all the same chemicals, not the same chemistry, same chemicals. Is in theory, if you had enough of these things, and had enough power to them, you could use them to actually tear a gas giant apart. To actually rip it apart. And those maybe would stay gas giants. Like, if you did this to Jupiter, all the gas giants are smaller than it. So you might be able to tear it apart and then have smaller gas giants. But you might be able to tear apart a gas giant enough that then with time it would coalesce down to a terrestrial planet. That's an interesting idea, and that's why I do want to put it into a story at some point, just because it's so interesting. It would probably have more of the heavier elements towards the core of the gas giant, so you would need to tear out there. You wouldn't just be able to go like a spoon and whoop, scoop out a portion. No, that wouldn't work. I guess if you're interested in just the chemistry from there, which in the chemicals in the upper atmosphere you could, but that wouldn't, you wouldn't get a plan out of that, because that would be mostly just gases. Even at like temperature, Earth temperatures, I believe they would still be gases. So, they wouldn't like if there's iron in, well, there should be iron there. It would be towards the core, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to. Carbon, possibly also. I have just been talking. I wanted this one to be short because I'm really tired. I'm rather exhausted today. But not how that worked. Lots to talk about because I like this episode, and I like my tangents. What are we doing? What's it for next week? Mud's Passion. 8th episode produced, 10th episode to air. And I know I got plenty more to go because there's 22 episodes. Yeah, but I will say this now, and I may change my mind. I am kind of feeling like I might not continue once I finish with the animated series. I'm ready to. I have the capability to. It's just it's kind of an outlier to my week. And it's just me. If I had somebody I could talk to as well, it wasn't just me, I would keep doing it. And who knows, maybe I'll be able to find, maybe I'll make a friend that would, like, I'll keep doing the anime series my own, but then it's like, oh, you're going through TNG? Yeah, sure, let's do that. That'll be fun. That'd be great. I don't know if that's what would happen, though. So, yeah. We'll see. But he's just such an outlier where it's like, oh, yeah, I need to remember. I need to watch this thing before 9, then hook up camera and start doing stuff. So, but we'll see, because it's still so many weeks to go. My situation may change, may make this more viable, may make it less. We'll see. But yeah, it's one a week. It's an outlier to my week as well. I'm not sure if it'll continue, but we'll see. All right. Yeah, so Mud's Passion, which will be interesting if only because we got Harry Mudd again. Yeah. All right. Just trying to think if there's anything else possibly to mention. But nothing really coming to mind. Oh, I guess one thing I'm just remembering because we got the cat lady over there. The multi-armed, the guy with 3 arms, who we have been seeing in previous episodes, Arex, I think was the name. Arex, according to... Yeah, Arex. He actually gets to speak in this, so it's the first time he speaks, which is kind of interesting because this was the 7th episode produced. Took him that long to finally get this guy a voice actor. But 3rd aired, so yeah. Alright, I do believe that is it. I don't believe I have anything more to talk about. I have gone on longer talking about this episode than the episode was itself. Somehow, that seems par for the course for how I can rant and ramble. Hey, it kind of works for me. Alright. See you next time.